Which recruits are visiting Michigan State football this week? We got one already committed to the class, a few 4-stars, and then we talk with Brian Smith, our locked-on recruiting expert, about all things Michigan State recruiting. Let's go. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 3 days a week in June and July, and then the other 10 months of the year. That's right, we do this 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube, or, hey, if you ever want to reach out with any questions or comments, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the best place to find us. And, of course, with Father's Day weekend approaching, I would be remiss if I did not shout out the man that's, well, pretty much been in my life ever since I've been walking around this planet. A man that showed me toughness can overcome weaknesses, even if you don't want to admit those weaknesses. But yes, toughness can get you through a lot of things. And how to be a leader in adverse times, and of course, well, the value of strong work ethic. And even though at times, of course, like this guy does get on my nerves and we don't always see eye to eye, he's still the one that you could trust in all sorts of situations. And we learn that time and time again. And of course, I'm talking about Tom Izzo. So, Tom, I hope you have a fantastic Father's Day weekend ahead. And, oh, yeah, my own dad, too. Yeah, happy Father's Day to you as well. No, one of the best Spartans that I know in my life is my own dad. Huge fan, huge supporter of myself. Shocking supporter. Who wouldn't want their kid to grow up to be a podcaster and just yell about college kids 5 days a week? But nevertheless, thanks for everything you do to my old man out there. Hope the drive from Florida is going okay. All right. Let's get into the world of recruiting here because Michigan State has a 6-pack of visitors coming up this weekend as things stand right now. In this day and age of college football, visitor lists can change by the hour. We actually get into that a little bit with Brian Smith in segments 2 and 3. But here is who we got locked in right now. And we're going to start with the lone Michigan State commit for this weekend. That is Emmett Bork, 6'6", 240-pound tight end out of Wisconsin. Now, speaking of tight ends, Jaden Savory, he visited at the start of this month. He has a BYU visit coming up and a Duke visit coming up after. So, Michigan State, they canceled their visit with Tyler Kielmeyer last week. That's another tight end that they were targeting. They want to take 2 in this class. If you could put 2 and 2 together, they feel pretty good about Jaden Savory, but still taking 2 visits, so just to keep an eye on something there outside of East Lansing. All right, we have some 4-stars coming in this weekend too. We're going to start with the biggest name here, 6'5", 260-pound defensive end from Howell. His name is Bobby Kanka, and he is committed, that's right, to those Wolverines down the road. He's a verbal commit for the Michigan Wolverines, but hey, still visiting Michigan State this weekend. He will be visiting Michigan the weekend after, but yes, this would be a nice little flip project here for Jonathan Smith, Joe Rossi, and the whole Michigan State staff. Now, he is the number 4 ranked kid in the state of Michigan, the number 18 ranked strong side defensive end per Rivals. So point blank period, this kid can play. We also talk about him a little bit longer with Brian Smith coming up. This kid's physical. He's nasty. He's everything you want on the defensive line. So, yes, if Michigan State can work their flip magic, this is one of the kids that you'd want that to be used on. So, as far as other strong side defensive end visitors, Mekhi Newton from Florida is the only other one so far this visit season. This will be the 3rd weekend coming up. There could be more next week. But, again, just like we mentioned, it's very fluid with official visitors. But, point blank, there's not a lot of strong side defensive ends that have visited so far this cycle. They really want to prioritize these kids and make them feel like they are prioritized. So Bobby Kanka is coming to East Lansing this weekend. The second 4-star, Grant Beerman, 6'4", 215-pound outside linebacker out of West Chester, Ohio. Rivals has him ranked as a 4-star. The number 30 outside linebacker overall. He's already visited Cincinnati. He visited Purdue last weekend. He also had a Rutgers unofficial visit beforehand. And that's a Scarlet Knight program that, believe it or not, if you haven't been paying attention to recruiting, they're killing it in recruiting right now. So that's another team to keep your eye on. But hey, a top 30 outside linebacker visiting Michigan State this weekend in Grant Beerman. Now we also have Chris McCorkle. Now this is an Indiana commit. That's right. Not too long, though. Like, he's only been committed to them for a few weeks. I think it was late April is when he committed to the Hoosier program. 6'1", 170-pound cornerback out of Sarasota, Florida. He's also going to be visiting Iowa after this. So Michigan State sandwiched between two visits. He visited Indiana to start the month. He's visiting Michigan State second up. And then, well, afterward is Iowa. So Iowa, of course, as strong as they are defensively year in and year out, that's going to be a name to watch out for. That's not a program that you could just kind of guffaw at and brush to the side. No, Iowa makes some dogs at cornerback, so this will be a tough commit to get. But, hey, Chris McCorkle, 3-star, but on a lot of recruiting sites, he's bordering just on that 4-star. So, again, this is another name that we talk about with Brian Smith. He's very familiar with his game. He's rangy, so there's more to come on Mr. McCorkle coming up. Now, before we get to the next name, just want to look over what Michigan State does have with corners so far in this class. None committed, but LaRue Zamorano is the only other corner that has visited so far. So, yes, they are honing in on just only a certain amount of players for certain positions. They have 2 scheduled next week. We'll see if that happens. Wouldn't be surprised one way or another, but yes, this would just be the second corner to visit Michigan State this June official visit season. Now, Derek Simmons, 6'3", 270-pound Zenders-fed defensive tackle out of Frankenmuth. That's right, Frankenmuth football, rise up. That is what we are talking about here. Now, he was slated to visit Boston College this weekend per Rivals, but obviously looks like things have changed, and he is going to be visiting East Lansing this upcoming weekend. He also has a Purdue and an Illinois visit on tap. Now, as far as other defensive tackles that we've seen on campus so far, Brad Fitzgibbon is the only other defensive tackle so far to visit this official visit season. And the 6th guy we got to get to, Cal Thrush, 6'4", 230-pound edge out of Columbus, 3-star kid, number 98 edge, and number 71 kid in Ohio per the 24/7 Sports composite page. And right now, so far, this is the only Power 4 visit this cycle for him. So, look, I'm just, throwing something out there. If we're going to be on commit watch for anyone right now, may you look at him, because this is going to be the only Power 4 visit he's taken so far. Of course, things can change. He can get another offer, go elsewhere. But I do wonder if Cal Thrush, is 6'4", 230-pound edge out of Columbus, could be a guy to keep our eye on. So there you have it. That's what we're looking for recruiting for this upcoming weekend for Michigan State. 6, and then there's supposedly going to be more next weekend. But again, guys, it is a fluid situation out there. We will see who ends up coming. But yes, that's where things stand. Just a little refresh right now. Michigan State, 7 commits for the 2025 class. They got 2 last weekend. Drew Nichols, Braylon Collier. So hopefully we can keep the momentum rolling here. And before getting to our chat with Brian Smith, just have to shout out golfer Ashton McCulloch. Now, he qualified for the U.S. Open out of Canada. He won the Canadian Amateur 2. He's a great golfer for Michigan State University. Tough opening round for him. I believe he was at 5 over last I checked. But nevertheless, guys, anytime you can represent Michigan State in a U.S. Open, anytime you can get into a U.S. Open, yeah, that's going to be recognized here. So Ashton McCulloch, who also just had a great season for Michigan State, better things to come, but also great things going on right now for his golf game. So let's go get him on Friday. All right, guys, we will be back here in a hot second, but first, need to talk your ears off about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We're talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or it's your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This recruiting segment of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster. And my favorite part, for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, this is a familiar voice, familiar face. He is a great friend of the program. It is a Locked On recruiting expert, Brian Smith. Brian, down there in sunny Auburn, Alabama. How's life? Are we doing okay over there?
It's beautiful here. 80 degrees, sunny,
Nice.
chilling. I'm good.
Same up here. So for the first time in I feel like 8 months, we have similar weather. We are both thriving right now in this summer. And Brian, just right off the top here, we're going to get into specific players here in a little bit, but it's been a while since we've chatted. A lot has happened, both in our lives, but that's not important. Also, the lives of Michigan State football recruiting. They have 7 commits, all 3 stars. Right now, they are ranked just outside the top 50 nationally. Point blank, period. Brian, let's get your thoughts on Michigan State recruiting so far this summer. Super broad question to start you with.
I think they've done a nice job of recruiting in state, which is probably the first thing that Jonathan needed to do. So that was goal one. He's done it. Obviously, the running back from East Lansing, who we'll talk about in a little bit, that's a polarizing thing. Like if he'd have went to Michigan or something, that'd been, that would
happen. Yeah. Andrell Anthony a few years ago. That was a fun day in the summer when that happened. Yeah, good times.
Oh boy! But at the same time, they're just getting their feet wet. So I'm not going to grade them harshly. They need to get better linemen, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a starting point. And I think for the next 2 years, maybe more, hopefully not longer than that, this is going to be a 50-50 of transfer portal and high school. They're not going to get the kids they want out of high school for the most part. It's just true. Yeah. This is a slow build. And Jonathan took on a long-term task. This is a 4-year rebuild, I would imagine. But to that point, he's not taking kids. You're like, man, this kid sucks. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. That's the problem with some programs. They just, no, grab bag. Everybody. No. Then they're wasting your scholarship. So I'm a little bit more happy than I thought. I don't know if you remember the text I sent you. Now it's time to panic.
Yeah.
I sent that text to you. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like, they need to get some commitments. They did right after I sent that to you, they started getting commits, but I was like, it's getting a little absurd. They're at 7. If they can get to 17, 18 quality players and do well in the portal, they'll be fine. That may be the recipe for a while. I'm sure they'd rather get 22, 23 high school kids, but some of the kids they want, they're probably going to struggle to get right now.
I think we somewhat align on this. Like right now, it's not, the class with the highest sex appeal. It's outside the top 50. It will climb once the numbers add on. But right now, yes, there are some 4 stars that have visited. There's one that's committed, according to one recruiting site, Jace Clarizio. We'll get to that in a little bit. But just where Michigan State's at in the pecking order right now, it's going to be a climb back up to, getting really solid 4-star laden classes. But right now, they're finding guys that meet their eye, and that's all they did at Oregon State. And it seemed to work fine there. There was actually another podcast out there, the Can't Read, Can't Write podcast. That's a Michigan State podcast that made a mention of Oregon State's offensive lines the last 2 years, and they didn't have anyone higher than a 3-star on those offensive lines, and they were Joe Moore finalists in the last 2 years. So it's a lot of faith. It's a lot of trust we're throwing out there with this coaching staff, especially on the lines. But so far, I know it's only 7. I know it's outside the top 50, and I swear I'm not just trying to blow smoke up Michigan State's butts right now, but there is reason to blindly trust this staff and what they're doing, all things considered. Fair or foul, you think? Just to blindly believe in Jonathan Smith right now, you think?
It's easier to win at Michigan State than it is at Oregon State, and they were good there.
Yeah.
They gave problems to Washington, Oregon, all these schools that had better players overall roster-wise, they either beat or took to the wire the last couple. You know what I mean? Like, they can coach. Are they going to get enough players to be a top 25 team starting in 24? Probably not. But, they did what they could in the portal. Starting next year, I think they could be a team that can shoot for a bowl game. And then in 26, you got a chance to be a team. Okay, now Michigan State has higher aspirations. It's a process. Yep. So the people that have zero patience might want to turn off the Michigan State football for a little while. It's going to be rough. But this is not a slow deal, man. Like, they were just gutted. The crap that went on with the last coach, he shall not be named. Like, he's an idiot.
Good times. Great times.
Put him in just a terrible spot.
Yeah, not fun.
I mean, what do you do if you're the AD? It's in the like, really?
Cry. You just cry a little bit and then get out there and start looking for coaches, which is I don't think he did the crying part, but I think he did the execution of the coaching search very well. So,
considering where they were to get somebody at Jonathan's level who could probably be in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really ahead of the curve considering where you were.
I feel like I've been beating this 3-word phase into the ground so far this offseason, so far this chat too, but it's all things considered. Like, all things considered, I think things are looking okay right now. But let's get to like specific kids right now, Brian, because as we've said, 7 kids right now. Any of the 7 kids that really catch your eye when you see what they have to offer on tape right now?
Well, Jace is the most fun because he's a running back.
Yeah, totally.
Let's just start with the exciting player. He makes everybody miss in a phone booth, and he's got some pretty good long speed. Got a little Kyron Williams in his game, that kind of player.
Sure.
And I mean, it's cool that he's from freaking East Lansing, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that kid could have went a lot of places, and very easily could have contributed at those spots. For him to commit to Michigan State, it also gives me more hope for the staff. Number one, they evaluated the local kid. They didn't overlook him. 2, again, he could have left. That was not an easy sell, I'm guessing. So, like, why am I coming here? You guys aren't very good. So I think they can recruit a little better than they're given credit for. Then finally, like, you put the ball in his hands, and Smith and his staff are good. He does things that has nothing to do with coaching. At some point, if you're going to beat Michigan, Ohio State, you got to have guys that just make people miss and are great. This guy that ended up with Seattle that played at Michigan State was like that.
Yeah, that's right. My good personal friend Kenneth Walker, who brought me so much happiness in 2021. The last year I smiled. That's right. Good times. Great times. I miss Kenneth, my good personal friend. Yeah, and On 3, that's another recruiting site out there. They just bumped Jace to a 4-star running back. So, I mean, it's not just you that likes him. It's not just us Michigan State fans that like him or the staff. There's a national recruiting service that is loving what Jace has to offer. So take that any day you can. So that's a nice little win in Jonathan Smith's book right there. When it does come to Michigan, though, there is a visitor coming up this week. We touched on him a little bit in the first segment. It is Bobby Kanka out of Howell, Michigan. He's been a verbal commit for Michigan for a little bit of time right now. He is visiting Michigan State this weekend. He will be visiting Michigan next weekend. But, Brian, just here we go with another broad question. Just what would a flip mean here? Is it more important to get the actual good 4-star player, or is it more important to really make a statement and actually flip a Wolverine commit right now?
Michigan State needs everything. I'm not excluding any options.
Okay.
They need all the above. Okay. They may need you at some point this season to put on a helmet.
Probably an offensive line, unfortunately, too, and that's not the stature I'm working at. But
okay, we'll get back to you on that.
I'll see how much Little Caesars I can throw down between now and August, and we'll circle back. But yeah.
This is what I put down for him: smart football player, physical football player, mentality fits Michigan State, has some really good hand technique. Long term is going to be a defensive tackle. All those are good things.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't, like if you look at the Michigan-Washington game at the title, Michigan's D-line was more physical than Washington's was. Michigan won.
Yep.
Like it's the number one predictor for who ends up winning. If you don't have staunch D-lines, you are done. When Michigan State was rolling under D'Antonio, that guy's going to the NFL, all Big Ten, and the D. Always tough physical kids. This guy fits it to a profile T. I get like he fits what Michigan's done the last few years. I know Michigan State fans hate him, but you got to give credit to how Michigan coached.
And the trenches over there were great. Yeah, totally.
And that's why they were tremendous. This guy fits. Totally get why Michigan State won. Good luck getting to flip, but this is how you change your program. Michigan started taking kids like this and just focusing in on just power. They got a ring out of it. So yeah. I think this guy has a possible NFL future because he is crazy, like commando guy on the D-line at 260, 270.
Yeah.
Can't have enough of those guys. You know, he might join you at Little Caesars too.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it. I'll actually buy because that's legal now. You can do that. So I will buy Little Caesars pizza for him. Look at me shelling out $7 to help Michigan State's recruiting efforts there. Don't say I never do anything for you people. All right. Now, this isn't a 4-star, but it's kind of bordering on a 4-star depending on what recruiting site you look at. This comes from a state that you used to have a mailing address in, not to straight up dox you, Brian, but hey, you spent some time in Florida, just like Chris McCorkle out of Sarasota, Florida. He's been verbally committed to Indiana for a few weeks. He visited the Hoosiers to start this official visit period. He's also visiting Iowa in the near future too. But Chris McCorkle, corner out of Florida, what do you know about this kid's game?
Very long, very athletic, changes
Yeah.
directions well. He is a pure corner. Sarasota, Florida. He's playing against a pretty good competition.
Yeah.
Pretty good speed. He could play free safety. He could play receiver. He's a pretty good receiver, actually.
Gotcha.
Florida offer kind of puts things in perspective. He doesn't suck. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Florida, it's state U. I know they're not very good right now, but it's still Florida.
Yeah.
This is a kid that could play at a very high level. When Michigan State was good, they used to always steal like one kid out of Florida. It's always been that way for 34 years. I don't know why. Maybe this is their guy. I don't know, but they need to get some more kids like this because I'm not seeing on their visit list as many guys with this kind of length, this kind of speed to play outside the Midwest. I don't know where they stand with him, but his film is impressive.
Yeah, there's not a lot of corners visiting Michigan State so far. It was LaRue Zamorano. He's a 4-star out of California. He visited earlier this month. And right now they have 2 slated for next weekend. But, man, these visit lists have been changing by the hour, so I don't know how hard of a commit. Okay, you know what? That's actually a question I wanted to ask you. Is this just a Michigan State thing, or is this a nationwide thing where visit lists are out of control?
I'm going to give you an acronym as to why I think it is. This is one that you're familiar with. It's NIL.
I have heard of that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's why these lists are fluid.
Yeah. Understandable. I thought you were going to say FUBAR, which would also be probably on the mark a little bit, but it's more so than money that we're talking here. Okay. That kind of brings me comfort here because obviously it's the Wild West of college football right now, but official visit lists have never been this fluid, and I started to get a little self-conscious over here. I'm like, is it us, or is this just like a national problem that everyone has to deal with? So it sounds like that. Okay, we'll take it.
Texas, Auburn, Michigan State, UCLA, doesn't matter. It's crazy.
I just got 10 minutes of sleep back tonight, so thank you for that. Appreciate that. Anything else Michigan State wise that you just want to hit on before? Like I widen the net and talk a little bit about Big Ten recruiting, but anything else that really caught your eye about Michigan State that you want to leave us with here?
I think they've kind of taken a D'Antonio approach with physicality.
Yeah.
And the way they're looking at some of the kids, watching some of the film, doesn't matter if it's a lineman, if it's a skill player, whatever, physical kids. And to be honest with you, that fits what Jonathan did at Oregon State, especially their offense. They were downhill. You mentioned the O-line and stuff there. I don't know who their O-line coach was, but he's pretty good.
Yeah, Jim Holchek. Yeah, he's an ace. Yep.
Because they're not getting the kids at Southern Cal and Oregon are. You know what I mean? And they still have one of the best lines in the Pac-12. So that's a good sign. And then 2, if they can, and this is a big one, we're going to put Matt in charge of this. If Michigan State could win 5 or 6 games this year.
Okay, I believe. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think they can, with this staff and how they're developing and how they're recruiting, they could steal a few kids later in the cycle.
Okay, gotcha. Comforting to know because it's not like the longest list of official visitors. Like they've really honed in on who they want. They want every kid to feel like a priority. Like that's been crystal clear so far this month. But like if you do some misses, then okay, you're sitting with like 12, 13 kids in November. Pretty hopeful if they can get to the 5-6 win mark. 7 on my end. I'm predicting 7-5 right now. I've been firm on that for a little bit, but late cycle seems optimistic. Hopefully, we'll take that.
If they get to 7-5, they will have exceeded many expectations. I mean,
Brian, I have my Jacksonville hotel booked right now for the Tax Slayer Bowl right now. I am ready to get down and treat the Tax Slayer Bowl as if it's Pasadena. This will not be an issue. But we're for 7-5. I know that experts like yourself, they think it's going to be lower than the bowl eligibility. Vegas certainly doesn't think so. They have the over-under at 4.5. We just went through K Ford rankings. They're seeing only 1 or 2 conference wins. So, yes, it is going to be a long climb up. This would shock the world if we make it all the way to Jacksonville, or maybe even Nashville, the Music City Bowl. But nevertheless, we'll see what they can do late in the cycle here. I do want to ask you about this, just that I have your ear, the national recruiting expert of Lockdown right here. There's been 2, or maybe call it 3 fascinating things with Big Ten recruiting right now. So, Brian, what's more just shocking, puzzling, whatever word you want to use? Is it Rutgers currently having a top 10 class in the nation right now, or is it the fact that both national championship game teams from last year, Michigan and Washington, are outside the top 50, according to 24/7 Sports right now? Both are crazy to me. That Rutgers is just killing it this hard. And then Michigan and Washington, granted some staff turnover. Of course that happens, but wow, outside the top 50. Like, what's more puzzling to you?
I'm going to go with the latter because you got 2 schools outside the top. It's
right. One
I
behind
know.
Michigan State right now. It's like, how is that possible? I know that, again, coaching staff change and everything like that, but my God, you were just playing for it all last year. Heavens, Lordy.
I had a phone call from a friend of mine who lives in the Midwest, covers recruiting, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, Michigan, like, they're not recruiting well. And I know that breaks the hearts of the fans listening to this podcast. So my apologies.
It's tough to hear. It's very tough to hear, right?
But he was just like bewildered. And I'm like, well, they did lose their defensive staff and Jim's now in LA, etc.
Yeah.
But still, it's Michigan. How hard is this?
I could wrangle up a top 30 class, no problem. No problem. I can do it, Brian.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, you're freaking Michigan. You should be able to get into the ballpark pretty quickly. They haven't. That gives me pause about what's going on. I don't know anybody there, but like, that's odd. The Rutgers thing, I will give them credit. Even when Shiano was there the first time, they focused in kind of like what Smith is doing with the local area guys. Yeah. Hey, you're a guy. They go all in on it, and kids like that. Do I think Rutgers has any chance to end up in the top 10? That's similar to you starting at right guard for Michigan State this year? Probably not.
Right.
But at the same time, they're at least, I mean, it's cool that they're being competitive because forever they've been a laughing stock in college football. And Shiano is the only time they've been good. Yeah. You know, I mean, give the man some credit. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Unless you play in the same conference as them. And it's like, great. They're going to be annoying. But nevertheless, just 2 fascinating storylines going on in the world of recruiting there. Anyway, Brian, this has been a certified hoot and a half, as it always is. Really appreciate your time, your insight, your knowledge. And folks, appreciate you listening. Appreciate your ears, your eyeballs. Really cannot thank you all enough. We will be back sometime over the weekend, looking like Sunday's next episode. But until then, hey, let's have a great Father's Day weekend. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's mix some water in this weekend, too. Until we talk next time, hey, love you all. Go Green.